All right, good morning, good morning. We're going to be doing a simple tutorial. This is going to be tutorial number one, basics of getting into BeamNG modding. This is going to be a fully uncut video. I don't know how many parts this series is going to be, but I understand BeamNG modding is difficult to get into. So uh, I feel like if you can't understand how BeamNG modding works from normal tutorials because they just go too far into depth. They talk nerdy, shit like that. I feel like you then consider yourself as a retard, and I'm a retard, but I managed to figure it out. So, from one retard to another, good morning, welcome. Um, this is going to be BeamNG Modding 101. Today, we're going to start off with just engine upgrades, shit like that. Stupid shit, basically. Now, in order to not break your game, please follow as close as you can. Um, yeah. So today we're going to be doing just a simple engine upgrade for, I guess we'll do the Scintilla. So just go ahead and spawn in that Scintilla real quick. You know, this car, supercar, V10 or V8 if you really want. We're going to do the V10 though because I found that one just easy, I guess you could call it. Scintilla is a pretty basic car, but yeah, you don't need all this stuff. This is just debugging stuff I use for other mods that I make. I'm working on a Kona 6 CCX right now. It's getting pretty far. It's almost there. Just need some doors, shit like that. I'm a legitimate modder, verified by Fricks, and some random BeamNG Lodge. As you can see, Makeout Hill. There you go. Mod creator just logged on. If we go over here, Makeout Hill, just so you're not getting scammed or whatever. Um, yeah. So first off, you're just gonna basically want to go to your mods area, put up your mods folder. You're gonna have all this. If you don't have an unpacked folder, you're gonna want to create one. Make sure it's spelled pretty much exactly. And yeah, pretty simple there. You're gonna right click over here inside the unpack section. You're gonna create a new folder. Name this whatever you want. I'm just gonna call this tutorial one. Okay, and you're gonna open this up. Right click new vehicles. This is essential if you want to pretty much do anything in BeamNG, unless you're doing UI. I don't know UI too well, but if you're modifying a vehicle or making your own vehicle, you're gonna need this. Now in here, depending on if you're making a custom vehicle or if you're modifying an existing vehicle, it depends on what you should name these. If you're making a custom one, name it wherever you want. If you're building off an existing one, you're going to want to find the internal name. You can do that by pretty much just going over to your application, which in my case is on disk C, but it might be on a different disk for you. So who knows? You basically just want to go here, and then you should see a content folder. Open that up, and then vehicles. And because we're doing the Scintilla, we're going to want to find the Scintilla here. Some of these names will not make sense, and you might spend hours debugging, but that's okay. That is the whole fun of it. Also, before we go any further, I recommend downloading something called Notepad++. And if you're going to do 3D things like engine swaps, things like that, I recommend getting Blender as well. Now, we're going to go ahead and open up this, and actually, first off, internal name is now Scintilla, because it's just after, as you can see, vehicles. So we're inside here, we're going to want to name this folder Scintilla, like so. Pretty much like the same, right? We're going to go in here. We're not going to open this up. We're going to scroll through. Ignore these DDS. They'll say type DDS file. Ignore those. Those are like texture files, pretty much. They also can do a lot more than texturing, but that's the gist of it. That's usually what they're used for as well. So we're going to want to go ahead and find engine right here, engine JBeam. We're going to go ahead and drag and drop that, and let's see if I can find the ECU. Actually, I'm pretty sure the ECU is in the main engine. Some cars aren't like that. Some cars are. It kind of depends on your luck. Some cars won't have the engines within the actual zip folder, and to find those, it's a tad bit more complex and can be a bit of a pain in the ass, but there's another zip file that is called common right here. So it's just basically a collection. The ETKs are very common to have these. If you actually scroll down to engines, you can see we have a bunch of these. So these ones all share it. And then as well as the ETKs share a lot of stuff within here. But otherwise, most things should be pretty much internal. Now, we have this engine.jbeam, or Scintilla engine.jbeam. You're going to want to rename this just so you don't overwrite the original one. I'm just going to rename this to tut1, so tutorial 1. Go ahead and open that up. Now, because we're going to make it a separate engine, you have to change this top name. Okay, it should be at the very top, of the object. So like, say if I were to scroll down to, let's see here, where's the next item? This might be a minute. Oil pan, right? Say I want to make another oil pan. I just add whatever I want. So I'm just going to add U-tip, I guess, or we'll just do tut 1, right? Now we've just added the duplicate oil pan. Pretty simple, pretty basic. Yeah, I don't really want that, so yeah. And then at the very top, we're just going to add underscore tut 1. Now we're going to change this to extreme. Now this is the name as it clearly depicts. You can change the author, which in this case I will. I'm just going to change this to Makeout Hill. Bam. Now we should have a separate engine popping up in game. Well, within the customization menu, which you can enable by pressing Control W. If it doesn't show up, you might want to Control L. It very well might not show up for me. So let's see. It did not, so we're going to want to hit Control L. Usually you want to hit Control L if you've made new files. It's not so common to have to hit Control L if you haven't made any new files, like if you just edited existing ones. If you've edited existing ones, I do recommend pressing Control R on the car, though. That reloads the car. Control L is Lua scripts. Lua scripts is like what BeamNG is. And as you can see, 5.0 liter V10 Extreme. So we're going to go ahead and put that on the car now. It'll look the exact same. We haven't changed anything called flex bodies, which will be probably a tutorial or two from now. No idea if I'm even going to continue these. This is the slot types. So slot types can be depicted by like, they're pretty basic to understand. Basically, it's what type of slot. So if we were to go ahead and look at the actual Scintilla's like body J-beam, or I guess in this case it'd be the rear body J-beam, you'd see there's right here, as you can see, slots. This is technically a slot type, but underneath this slot section. So basically, this Scintilla engine has these options, which can then be redefined later on. So if we actually scroll back down to that oil pan, you'll see it's what's it called? Its slot type will be different. So it's now an oil pan. You know what I mean? Makes sense? That's pretty simple. So now we're going to go ahead and change some things. We can change engine torque. We're actually going to add a few thousand RPM. I'm going to probably pause this because this is going to take me a minute to just kind of do, just so we can go higher RPMs pretty much. This part can be a little complex, but you pretty much just want to copy the same format that they used. It's pretty simple, but yeah, I'll be right back. All right, so I've decided on 15,000 RPM will be the max that we've coded it for. We're also going to set the maximum physical RPM. You want to usually set that just underneath this. So I'm going to set it to 14,500. So you just go like this, you just change this to 14,500. So now if the RPM goes higher than 14,500, it will start causing damage to the engine. I don't recommend changing much of these. You can if you really want to, but we're not going to be doing that today. Fuel system, pretty self-explanatory. The energy storage basically is where the fuel is coming from, or electric if you're using electrics, gasoline if you're using a gas engine vehicle, pretty simple. And then the required energy type is very straightforward, self-explanatory. It's what type of engine the car actually needs. So if these are, like, say fuel tank R were to magically become a diesel engine, a diesel one, and so would this one, right? It'll check for that. It'll read through the diesel, the fuel tank L and fuel tank R, and be like, well, shit, that says diesel. So no can do, amigo. Pretty simple, pretty basic. Let's see here. We have a bunch of other things here. So this is basically exhaust. This stuff I don't know too well, but the gist of it is pretty much flames, pop pop, and bang bang. Let's see here. Thermals enabled. We're gonna actually disable that. So you just want to type in false to disable things. Engine block material, we'll keep it as aluminum for now. Maybe we'll change it later on. Oil volume pretty much just keeps it the same, and the cooling efficiency, we're actually going to turn that up a little bit. If I'm going too fast, you might want to slow down the video. Personal recommendation. The damage, the temperature, because this engine's going to be getting very hot from very high RPMs, we're actually going to turn this up to, I don't know, 14,000. Seems reasonable enough. And because we are technically overclocking this engine, I recommend making these little factors, which is like the damage threshold, so basically the maximum amount it can take. I recommend turning it up. Max over torque rating, we're going to turn that up and turn that up. Press Control S every time. You should see on the side here, it'll turn to this color. Green means it's saved. Orange means it's not saved. And if you do Control Z enough, blue means it's the original. So, yippee. These nodes can become very confusing. Like, it's called, down here you see a sound config. This is just to change the sound of the car. Flex bodies, we're going to skip over most of this because most of this really isn't important for what we're doing today. Flex bodies is basically like the actual 3D models that it's calling. So you can see here it's calling for Scintilla engine, which means within the 3D file, aka the DAE file, it is calling for a file called Scintilla engine, right? And then you can see here that's its group. Its grouping is Scintilla engine. And over here we have radiator hose. We have another radiator hose. That's pretty basic, honestly. There's not very much going on there. Nodes, I don't recommend screwing with these unless you have something called Node Beam Editor, in which case you can. I still don't recommend it because these are a pain in the ass. Beams, same thing. I don't recommend touching these unless you really want to get in depth. They can become a headache and will probably give you nausea if you're not careful. Now, we're going to skip over the stock one. We're actually going to skip right to the race one, and we're going to change this to top one. We're going to change this to tutorial, I don't know, tutorial pan. Tutorial pan. Make sure, again, remember to like change this name right here. This is like what it's reading, and if it's the exact same as the original BeamNG files, you have a 50-50 of either overwriting the original games, like oil pan, and a 50% chance of overwriting yours with theirs and just having a duplicate oil pan. So always remember to change this, always. Pretty much the rest of this can stay the same. Again, we have a slot type, Scintilla oil pan. Keep that the same. Please don't change that. I mean, you can unless if you're building a separate car, but I recommend not. It's not very much to do here, but we will make it be able to handle more G's just because it's going to be producing a lot of power. Now we have intakes. We're actually going to skip over the stock intake and we're going to go straight to the turbos because I like turbos. Turbos go stu-du-du-du-du. You know, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna skip right on over to turbos. We're gonna go to the, I don't know which one, honestly. Turbo stage 1, cool, good enough for me. We're gonna name this tutorial turbo, right? Control S again, save that. You'll see BeamNG flash in the background. Pretty simple. Now I'm actually gonna make this bigger just so you can see this. You can see there's a bunch of flex bodies here. Again, 3D models. It's calling them so it's visual in the vehicle. If you don't want it visual, you can easily delete it. Very simple. Now, this can get very confusing very fast. It says turbocharger. This is like what type it is. So it can be a supercharger, turbo, or naturally aspirated. In this case, it's a turbo because, you know, it is a turbo. We have turbo size coef. This is pretty much like the output, like particles, basically. The BOV sound is kind of like the blow-off valve. It's literally a blow-off valve. It's not kind of. It literally is the blow-off valve sound. But we're going to actually turn that up so we can hear those turbos whine. Hiss volume per PSI, that's pretty basic. It's basically the turbos like whine. Well, in this case, hiss. Per PSI. So say you're at 1 PSI, it's going to be at 0.32. 2 PSI, it's going to go up to 0.064. Double that again, you know, go 4 PSI, it's going to go 0.128. Pretty simple. We're actually just going to change that to whatever. Doesn't really matter. Whine volume and this, I honestly don't usually change it, but yeah. Pressure rate PSI, we're going to turn this up to 250 as well as wastage start, Jesus Christ. We'll set it at 110, so this is basically like the main minimum wastage. Also, I did not follow my own tutorial. I did not even change the name of this. Remember to change that, bud. Good thing I didn't put it on the car yet. Yeah, that would have been bad. Anyways, where are we here? Right here. There we are. And then we have damage threshold. We're going to turn this up just because it's going to be producing a ton of power. On some cars, you'll see like a thing called pressure per or PSI per RPM, or per 1K RPM. Basically, that means per 1,000 RPM, how much PSI is it actually pushing out. It's more common on superchargers, but it also sometimes happens with turbochargers. We're also going to change these values. So this is like the turbine's RPM. Depending on its RPM, how much PSI is it actually outputting. So we're just going to multiply everything by 10. Oops. There we go. We'll just do 5.5 on that, and I don't know, 30. There you go. Now, we should be pretty good on that now. This is just sounds and shit like that. Nodes, beams, like I said, I don't recommend touching this unless you want to get real deep. Yeah, we should now theoretically have multiple turbos and new parts. So if we go on over to our engine over here, open this up, we should have a new intake. Where is it? Tutorial turbo, right there. We put that on the vehicle, and we're also going to put the tutorial pan on the vehicle. And the turbo gauge should pop up right on over here. As you can see, it's already spooling. That's a great sign. See, there he goes. We're also producing 3,000 horsepower. As you can see here, you will hear it. You can hear that turbo like, you know. Yeah, pretty simple, pretty basic. The ECU now. We're going to need an ECU to change the actual RPMs because we did set it to 14,500, but it's not applying. That is because the ECU needs to be changed. To find the ECU, it can be a bit of a pain. You might spend a lot of time, like me right now, trying to find said ECU. So I'm actually going to pause this video until I find the ECU. I'll be right back. Alright, well, luckily for us, the ECU actually turns out to be within the main engine. So if we scroll down to just past the turbo section, I was actually scrolling through the files. I couldn't find it anywhere. It only took like 2 minutes. As you can see, we have stock ECU. We're going to want to change this to, I guess, just top 1. Mind you, every mod you make sure it's different, and this section and the actual mod name cannot have spaces, nor can the actual like file name. Pretty much no spaces. If you're going to do a space, do this underscore. Pretty much coding 101. And we're just going to change this to tutorial ECU. Control S that. Slot type, don't change it. Rev limiter RPM. Now we're actually going to change this. We'll do, I don't know, 14,000 because that's what our engine is physically like able to handle. Change this to 0.1. And yeah, pretty simple. Hop in the vehicle config here. Scroll down to there, and ECU. Now we have tutorial ECU. Hit apply. Give it a second to load up. And as you can see, now we're able to do 14,000 RPM. See? There you go. That's tutorial number 1. Tomorrow I'll be making, I guess, tutorial number 2. These videos are pretty much uncut other than like me pausing the actual recording. Thank you so much for watching. I doubt these videos will ever get big because there's not very many people into modding, but if you do like modding and you want to learn more, be sure to subscribe and check out my Twitch. We stream 4 times a week. That's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We stream from anywhere between 3 p.m. EST, so it's like 11 p.m. right now, up until roughly 7 or 6, depending on whenever my food gets here, and we do modding the whole time. You know, we just sit there for an hour or two, or a few hours, basically, just modding away, talking to some people, hanging out, you know, just having fun. So feel free to join in if you want to learn more, and if you have any questions about more modding. And you can also leave me recommendations of what to add to my CCX, and leave me recommendations of what to make if you really want some cool things made. So yeah, have a good one. Thank you so much for watching.